Hi everyone and welcome to the Art of Casting Masterclass. Sorry if there was a bit of a delay at the start. We're just waiting for everyone to join to make sure everyone was with us. This will be all about the wonderful world of casting. My name's Sandhu and I'm a series producer. I've kind of worked in TV for about 13 years, mainly across reality, but also fact-ent. But we have a wonderful panel of expert casting pros with lots and lots of experience. I'll introduce all of them shortly. A bit about this masterclass. It's obviously a really crucial part of the production process, casting, and to be involved in the casting process, it requires lots of kind of people skills, a lot of patience, and it's a lot of kind of hard work because, you know, the real people and their stories are the heart of kind of factual entertainment programming, and they're the key to kind of get viewers engaged and return to kind of shows and watch their lives, opinions, sharing the highs and lows and all of the kind of emotion that you experience. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll find out kind of how to find great contributors, build the kind of trust that's really key to persuade people to take part in programming, and also learn about how to get the most out of the people that you're casting for shows. And just in terms of the kind of casting producer role, we'll find out where all these lovely kind of people got to where they are in their amazing jobs, and how you put together a great cast who can engage and entertain. So first of all, and before I kind of introduce, please do kind of post questions throughout. We'll kind of get to that towards the last 10-15 minutes, but anything that comes up whilst people are speaking on the panel, just post in the Q&A box at the bottom and we'll get to them towards the end. But it's good to kind of keep that going throughout as and when things might come up. So I'll start with Alastair, who is a casting producer at RDF West at the moment on Tipping Point. He's actually at work as we speak after a very long day. So it'd be great to hear from you, Alastair, how you kind of first got into casting, any kind of your previous casting experience, and a bit about your role at the moment would be great.
Sure, of course. Hi, everyone. So like I said, I'm Alastair. I work in Tipping Point at the minute. Many years ago, I started in television. I managed to get my way in as a studio runner at Coronado Studios up in Manchester. And from that, I got a job in casting as a junior researcher in ITV Daytime, where I spent many years working on a variety of shows. I ended up doing Judge Rinder for a long time. And then about 3 years ago, I went freelance. I was a casting producer at that point, and I ended up moving into quiz shows. And so I still do a bit of factual reality, but I'm doing Tipping Point in Bristol. This is my third series now in Bristol doing Tipping Point, which is great, even if it is very long days. And I've done Pointless as well. I've done a few fact-ent shows like Bidding Wars as well in the meantime. But yes, it's kind of a, you know, typical quiz shows where I'm at the minute. Is great. It's really fun. But yeah, there's lots of stuff to chat about in casting. And day to day, I manage a casting team. We are in studio, I think, well, we do 8 weeks in studio, 100 episodes. So we do about 4 shows every day, about 3 or 4 days a week. And we have a 6-week run-up period to that, where we do a really heavy casting tour, which has changed dramatically since COVID, which I'm sure we'll chat about later anyway. And then it's just filming, but there's still a casting process going on. So I'm studio producing and casting producing at the same time. And that's a nice introduction.
That was amazing. Thank you. Yeah, we'll go into lots of those points a bit later on. And Claire Parry, senior casting producer at 5 Mile Films on The Amazing Doghouse at the moment. Same questions to you, an intro to you, please.
Yeah, I was quite similar actually. I was a studio runner working at Endemol, and sort of worked up through research. Like I was doing a bit of audience research for that, and then sort of worked up. I've been sort of doing a bit of producing and casting producing, but I love casting producing. Like it is, obviously it can be a bit of a slog at times, but yeah, it just feels worth it. Like I love chatting to people. I'm quite nosy, love having a long phone call, so it ticks all the boxes for me. So yeah, at the moment, well, previously I've worked on lots of fact-ent programs. Sort of more recently been doing a lot of the Back in Time, did a few of the Back in Time programs, so history. I've done some Eat Well, Shop Well, but yeah, currently I'm working on the Doghouse, so I've been doing that since series 1. We're now on series 4, which is hard to believe. But yeah, it's amazing. Love working on it. So got an amazing team, manage a team of about 8 of us. It is obviously sort of the casting is sort of paramount to the programme, finding the people. So we've been really busy, loads of outreach, and now we have actually just started filming. So casting as well is sort of carrying on as we're filming on the rig. So yeah, it's busy, but all exciting. We're starting to match the dogs, so it's always the best bit where you get to see happy people.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. And Rosie Smith is a casting producer at 2020 television, currently on Teen First Dates. Rosie, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, lovely to meet you all. Yeah, so I'm Rosie. I'm actually currently not in the glorious First Dates world, but it is what I do most often. I started life in development at the BBC, and I found when we were developing shows, casting is what sort of always brought the format to life. So I moved into the casting world and haven't looked back for about, gosh, nearly a decade now. I do spend a lot of time on First Dates, the glorious world of First Dates teens and the main show and compilations. I'm yet to go to Italy to go to hotel, so fingers crossed that comes in the future. And at the moment I'm working on BBC One's Sort Your Life Out with Stacey Solomon, a glorious decluttering show where we go into people's houses, take all their belongings out, put them in a warehouse, get them to reduce them, make the house over and sort their lives out, as it were. So we are halfway through casting, and we similarly are also filming at the same time, so it's busy. We've got 3 more episodes to cast, and only a little team, there's only 3 of us, so there's a lot to get done, but it is good meeting all these amazing families.
Amazing, thank you so much. And last but not least, Jo Somner, casting producer at Plimsoll Productions, and I believe on Handmade, Britain's Best Woodworker.
Yeah, so yes, I got into TV about 12 years ago now, and started off as a runner, obviously. I started off doing Strictly. I was in London until about a year and a half ago, and I just moved west quite recently. So I did various London jobs. My first casting job was on Britain's Got Talent, convincing magicians to go on, and I swore I'd never do casting again after that. But then I got a job on, I think it was Don't Tell the Bride, casting the couples, and I was like, do you know what, I actually really like this, and I realised that was where I kind of fit, and I was just, like Claire said, nosy and like having a chat and all that kind of thing. So then, yeah, became a casting producer about 7 years ago, senior casting producer now, and I've done kind of lots of varied things like Naked Attraction, Secret Life of 4 and 5-year-olds, Tattoo Fixers, different puppy documentary called 12 Puppies and Us for the BBC, Your Face or Mine, Shot Well for the Planet. I did some RDF West, which I think we've all been at for a while, they're lovely. And yeah, now I'm at Plimsoll Productions doing Handmade, Britain's Best Woodworker for Channel 4. Like everyone else, right in the middle of casting, and we start filming in 3 days' time. So we are filming, it's basically Bake Off but for wood. So they're all going to the wood tent in a few days, and then we're also looking to find a whole other cast of woodworkers for the summer as well. So half of my job at the moment is managing people going to location, plus also looking for a whole new batch of people to film with in the summer. And yeah, I've got a nice team of about 5, although they keep getting pinched to do various location jobs at the moment. So that's, managing a team is a delightful part of being a casting producer as well, as we all know. Yeah, that's about it really.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And that's a great kind of wealth and massive kind of variety of casting experience across the panel, so that's brilliant. We'll start off by kind of just talking through the casting process and casting strategy. So kind of the biggest thing, I guess, is what qualities you look for when you kind of cast people, and they must be specific to the project, but there are probably some quite general rules as well. So Rosie, I don't know if that's something that maybe with your experience on Teen First Dates or something that you could kind of talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I assume everybody sort of watched First Dates. It's been around for donkey's years now. So for us, it's often we're looking for people who are going to surprise us a little bit. And in those ways, I always love to be made to laugh. Humour is a huge thing on First Dates. You have those moments that sort of make you giggle out loud, whether it's through awkwardness or because people are sort of delightfully naive or just lovely people to watch. So humour really, especially with the teenagers. Teenagers are so funny even when they don't mean to be. So if a casting tape can make me laugh, then, you know, that's a massive, massive tick. Relatability also with that, you get a lot of unique stories on first dates where you sort of see people in incredibly unique life situations and stuff that's really surprising. But what I always look for is relatability within that. So I want audiences at home to watch and go, oh God, that's you, to their 15-year-old, or going, oh, that's what I used to be like when I was that age. I remember being in a restaurant for the first time and not knowing how to order, you know, a starter or a main or whatever it is. So those moments are really sweet. So we look for that kind of relatability when you're tuning in. And then the biggest thing is layers for me, and this is kind of across the board on all the shows I work for. You want someone's story to unfold on screen. So especially on first dates, you meet people in their little interview before they even reach the restaurant and you think you know who they are. And then throughout the process of their date, either that assumption that you have about them is turned on its head and you're surprised that way, or there's another element to their story that you had no idea about and you're even more invested in them halfway through the date. So layers to someone's story and different elements of their life that you can reveal. You're starting to think about what that date in the restaurant is going to look like as it unfolds. And then I think finally, just a sort of logistical point, someone who's quite keen on your programme as well and is really excited to be considered. So they're not flaky or unsure or sort of difficult to reach. You can't get hold of them from one day to the next because, you know, as we all know, when you get to filming, it's very difficult if you can't get hold of someone to get, if a date needs changing or they need some information relaying, if you can't get hold of them. So I think logistically, if someone's keen, that's always a good sign for me as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Yes, definitely. And Joe, the same question to you. Obviously, at the moment, you're working on something that's quite specific in terms of the skill, but that as well as the kind of additional qualities that you look for.
Yeah, everything Rosie said I completely and utterly agree with, and I won't repeat it. But yeah, we've also got, and you get this for every show, and what's quite nice about casting is that you become this weird little expert. So at the moment, I, for some reason, have to be the one who says how good people are at woodwork. Like, I have no idea. But in January, my team started saying, is this woodwork good enough? And I'm like, okay, that's my job now. So you kind of, you have to work out what the brief is and become that kind of expert. So it's all of the things that Rosie said, you know, story, do they have just like sparkly eyes? Are they funny? Are they engaging? Plus, have they got, for us, it's quite specific. It kind of has, they have to be amateurs. They can't be too professional. They could have made a bit of money, but they don't necessarily have to. They have to be good enough at the skill where they're not going to come onto the competition and look bad, but they can't be too good. See, for every single show, it just becomes quite specific. But then equally, you're looking for this really diverse, lovely, incredible, engaging cast. So you, for some things, you might kind of go, okay, well, we could maybe let that slide actually, because this person's got the most incredible story or their personality is absolutely amazing. So it becomes this kind of like juggling act where you kind of take each person almost case by case and kind of try and work out, I've never thought of this analogy in my life before, but like if you had a bar chart, like you'd be like, well, this is really tall, but this is, so can they work? And does the mean average mean that actually that one works? So I've never used that before, but there you go. And obviously diversity is really, really important. As we all know, it's the first thing we go out and look, you know, make sure that when we're doing our outreach, are we getting people of colour? Are we getting LGBTQIA plus people, different ages, different accents, money, social status, like across the board, are we getting all that? At the same time, not falling into tokenism and making and putting someone on just for the sake of it. You know, someone, you know, is in a wheelchair, you're not going to put someone on for that reason. They also need to be on the graph of having all of the good things and that kind of thing. So it's a massive kind of juggling act, really. But immediately they have to have a smiley face, smiley eyes. That's my first thing. And then you have to, you know, look for all of the other things to match, really. I kind of blabbed on there, but
no, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. And just in terms of the casting process, it can be, and people might be quite surprised to hear what a long, lengthy process it can be, and can be quite frustrating at points, I'm sure. And I know every production will be different, but just in general, like, or what you're working on now, how long should you and would you leave for the kind of casting process? Claire, for kind of Doghouse to begin with?
Yeah, so the casting process on the Doghouse it's normally, it's about 8 weeks, I think, and it never feels long enough. But then there's a really fine line with Doghouse. So we need, we need a lot of stories. So we overshoot a fair bit, just because you never know what's going to happen in the pen when people are meeting dogs, and you obviously, people drop out, and we actually have quite a high dropout rate on the Doghouse, which is a real shame. But so we leave about 8 weeks, and like I say, it is a bit of a fine line, because we are needing enough time to get those numbers through and make sure we've got enough, especially with the sort of dropout rate. And the dropout, it is obviously, there's dropout on every program, and you always have to, it's heartbreaking, but you have to obviously be prepared for that. But with the Doghouse, I think it is because it's so, we're asking people to commit to a dog for, potentially 15 years or more. So it is a really big commitment, and lots of people either get sort of caught up in that and, freak out, or go and get too excited and go and get their own dogs. So yeah, anyway, on point, we leave about 8 weeks, because the other thing that's really important for us is the why now. So as part of our story, we really want to hear from people on why they're getting a dog and what's going on in their life at the moment, that this dog is going to sort of make a real difference to. So it's really important that that is sort of current. So as much as we would need lots of time and to sort of build up like a good sort of database of people, we also need to make sure that, yeah, number one, they don't go and get a dog, and number two, that kind of really current reason is still there.
Brilliant, thank you. And Alastair, the same to you, the kind of casting process on Tipping Point, what is that like in terms of the length, and also maybe if you could chat about the different routes for casting as well and the avenues that you take on there, that'd be brilliant.
Sure, of course. So we have it, obviously it's slightly different in the quiz show world. We do have 6-7 weeks we have to start, but obviously because Tipping Point is such a long running series, we have thousands of people from the applications open, people are desperate to apply. So for example, this series, since we've opened, we've had about 9,000 applications, plus then another 50,000 from last series. And as long as it's about making sure that everyone's GDPR is eligible. There's a box that everyone ticks to make sure that's okay. But essentially then that becomes my challenge isn't, oh, I've got 6 weeks to find people. I have 6 weeks to sift down through 59,000 people and get my team focused on making sure they're getting the, people who are, I suppose it comes back to that thing that you guys, that Joe was talking about as well, where it's about, the basics of casting. I want people who I care about. People are coming on a television show, they could win 10,000, 20,000 pounds. You want to be someone sitting at home going, that's someone I care about. I want them, that's their journey. It's not, obviously everyone's got stories and everyone's got layers, but because they're coming on a quiz show, you want that experience of someone sitting at home watching the show and going, yes, I want that person to win money. I want them to win the jackpot because they're likable, they're relatable. And it's finding those people out of, say, 59,000 people that's my challenge at the minute. That's where we are. Obviously the journey of that, we used to do an amazing pre-COVID, we had an audition tour. So my first year on the show, we did a tour where we went around 27 different, we went out 27 different days and auditioned in person, groups of 20 people. So I think we did 2,000 something people over, 27 days, but it was across the UK. So it was like a proper full-on audition tour. It was amazing. And that was great because you got to meet people face to face. But since COVID, that's all now changed and we're doing it all on Zoom. And we tried individual auditions on Zoom, and there's a longer process. We do phone auditions to get to the Zoom auditions, and there's quizzes and general knowledge tests and things like that. But essentially, you want to be able to get to a point where you're meeting that person face to face. So an audition tour was amazing because you'd get a sense if that person was, fun or what they were like. And that's something I really miss when we were looking at Zooms. Like Zooms are great, obviously like this is, but being in a room with someone you can really tell what they're like. So the only kind of, what we've tried to do is we've started bringing in group auditions like this, and at least you kind of get a sense of, oh, well, that person interacts with other people quite well. And that's kind of you know, at the end of the day, that's what, well, especially quiz shows, but that's what it's like. You want to see, do they bounce off someone? Is there a, you know, is there a connection there?
Brilliant. Thank you, Alastair. And Joe, maybe a little bit more on the kind of auditions and screen test kind of process, I guess, and how it works, and what you're working on at the moment, are you still on Zoom, or are you doing back in person a bit more?
Yeah, I do not have 50,000. We started on series 2 and we had about 150 people in the inbox, and we were like, brilliant, this is amazing. So for us, it's a lot. It's not that, it's more of a needle in a haystack. Of that 150, about 100 of them were 64-year-old white men called Richard. No offense, we need a couple of them as well. So for us, as well as that process, we have to do a lot of outreach. So we are all over Facebook, social media, Instagram. We are posting in every single Facebook woodworking group. Anything woodworking specific, carpentry, women who do wood in Bristol, there's a group, all of that. But we're also going to community groups in Newcastle, mums bring and buy groups, I don't know, LGBTQI jobs groups, and we're just posting going, hi, do you know anyone? Does anyone know anyone? Does anyone know anyone? Get that spider web out. And then we DM and we target people on Instagram and Facebook directly, saying, hello, do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? And it is just making that network of hundreds and hundreds of people. I actually have been Zooming, except we did Skype, but we've been Skyping before the pandemic. So when it happened, we were like, oh yeah, this is fine. Occasionally we would, back in the older days, you definitely went out for sure. But the more the internet got better and the more Skype got better and the budgets got smaller, people were far more up for us kind of doing Zooms, Skypes, video calls. So I've actually been doing them for many years. And I was thinking about this today, actually, and I remember going all the way to Cornwall to speak to a woman, and I got there and within 5-10 minutes, I knew she wasn't right. And we'd gone all the way and we'd done an overnight stay, and then we had to see 3 other people to make it worth it. So I actually quite like it. And I think for this as well, especially when you might be talking to someone about not just their woodworking, but why did they get into woodwork? You know, for some people, they might have lost a parent. We've had that as a story. Someone's lost a parent and it was a way of connecting to them and feeling they're still connected. And actually, if you're kind of sat here and you've got this barrier, for the first time they're talking about it, they really open up, and you're still really getting to know them, but they feel safer because they're at home. And it's that first step into, like, TV is scary. For us, we're all very used to it. But if you're a contributor, you've never been on TV before, and you hear TV producer and casting producer, and it's intimidating. So I quite like that we can do a Zoom. And it also means you can go back and, you know, if someone's not got something, you're like, did you ask that question about that? And they're like, oh no. We're like, okay, well, let's just bring them up and do it again. You've got that kind of fallback thing. But yes, essentially the strategy would be outreach, finding people on the internet, getting them to kind of put in an application, having a phone chat with them. If on the phone you're like, do you know what, this person's got a lovely personality, they've got these kind of layers that we've thought about, they also sound like they've got the skills, then you would book them in for a Zoom, which would probably be about half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on how chatty they are. And then that gets cut to about 3 minutes, which is just their story, who they are, bit of personality, why they're good at woodwork or whatever. And that's basically what gets put forward and how we kind of decide on people. And I think the decisions on someone, the commissioner and everyone will make within about 20, 30 seconds. You just kind of get to a point where you know, but yeah, try not to ramble, try to keep it succinct.
No, that was brilliant. That's really kind of clear, and yeah, all makes sense. A little bit about official checks, because, you know, putting someone on TV is a big responsibility as well, and there's lots of kind of background checks that need to happen. If they've appeared on other shows, like, you don't necessarily want to see the same faces doing the rounds on everything, criminal records and all of that stuff. How do you kind of know what checks to make? And Rosie, for you, you've got the kind of additional element when you do work on team first dates, the fact that they are kind of, you know, under the age of you know, they are teenagers, you know, and could be a bit younger. So talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So the normal kind of checks that I guess we all do on shows will be background checks of various forms. So initially, perhaps like a Google background check, just Googling their names, any previous names, see if any massive sort of red flags come up, that hopefully we're not speaking to any serial killers or anything like that for any of our shows. And then, you know, more in-depth background checks can happen throughout the process as you get further on down the line and decide to film with people, which can involve anything up to full DBS checks. A software called LexisNexis that also goes through any sort of articles and things, just because you're just double checking that you're not putting anyone on television that could affect someone else, because there's been a court case, or all the sorts of things that you're sort of keeping an eye out for. With the under 18, so teen first dates is 16 to 19-year-olds, and anyone 18 or 19 we can treat as an adult, which is great. Under 18s, you do need to treat as if they are a child, not someone who is almost an adult. So you wouldn't get in touch with a 5-year-old to take part in a TV show off the bat without speaking to their parent first. It's exactly the same for a 17-year-old. So in our application process, we do ask the teens to put down a phone number and an email address for a parent or guardian if they are under 18. We are categorically not allowed to reach out to that teenager until we've spoken to their parent or guardian. So they could be the most perfect contributor on paper and put one digit down wrong for their parent's phone number, and we can't go there, because we have to speak to someone who is their guardian. To make sure they are aware of what the show is, that they're happy for us to speak to their child privately on the phone, because their child can be a bit more candid if mum's not listening in about their dating life. And then we kind of keep the parent or guardian abreast of what's going on every step of the way. For the Zoom audition, the parent will appear for the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of each Zoom to sort of say, yeah, I'm super happy for you to talk to my child. I know what you're going to talk about. I understand this Zoom is being recorded and where it's going. It's all that kind of duty of care thing that we do on every show anyway, but just ramped up for teenagers. And it's, for me, duty of care is informed consent. So contributors can only consent to taking part in the casting process in a TV show if they're fully informed as to what it entails. And I'm happy to talk to them about any length of the process. I've been asked details like, you know, how many members are on the casting team? How many people are you auditioning this week? And I'm totally happy to share that information, because I think if you're cagey during the casting process, you can't build trust. And with teenagers and their parents in particular, building trust is what ensures you can keep working with them throughout the process. They won't sort of go, do you know what, actually, this is all a bit too scary, as Jo said.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And I think we've kind of touched upon all of your casting strategies for the programs that you're working on at the moment. In particular, we've done kind of first dates and Woodworker as well. But in terms of Tipping Point and the Doghouse, Alastair and Claire, if there's anything to add in terms of a tone you might be trying to achieve with the people that you kind of cast. Claire, if we come to you first.
Yeah, we're actually really similar to First Dates. It's kind of First Dates for dogs, in all honesty. But we, there is, you know, what we're always sort of looking for is that sort of really relatable reason on how a dog can help someone. So, you know, there's all sorts of different reasons that dogs can help people, and we're just looking for someone who's very sort of open and can sort of get that point across through their own sort of personal stories. And, you know, some of those stories are quite heavy, and I guess we're always trying to make sure, you know, so initially, just as always with casting, you know, we're looking for that immediate appeal, like the smile, the sparkle in your eyes. I like that. And it is, you know, looking for exactly that. But then we're looking for someone who's sort of got this other story, and we're always looking for different, you know, we've got to have a real sort of balance, a massive sort of representation, obviously, of different people, but also different stories as well on how that dog's going to help them. And, you know, some of those stories are quite heavy. So we do have to be quite mindful. It is obviously a family show. So it's how we sort of tell that story and have that need as well. And similar to what Jo was saying, we've got to be really careful that we're not just putting people out there because they have something shocking, or, you know, they have a particularly sad story, or something stand out. It's got to be, it's got to make sense. You know, the dog's got to really make a difference, and it's got to really help. And so it's how we sort of tell that story as well that's really important. And humor is a huge thing, and especially in the heavier stories. You know, there's so many different sections to the program. There's obviously the sit down on the sofa, similar to First Dates, but then we're also on it's all obviously filmed on a rig, and we need someone who's going to be able to hold you know, hold themselves and sort of provide lighter moments when they're in the welcome centre, when they're waiting for the staff, while they're off sort of finding the dog and stuff. So we're also looking for that. And then obviously when they're in the pen, that it's just them and the dog. So, you know, people that are willing to sort of show some emotion and open up. So it's getting that, all that from a person, and still making sure that we are just getting a really honest, you know, the one thing that links all these people is that they want a dog. But apart from that, we've got to sort of show every sort of corner of the country and all the people in it.
Brilliant, thank you. And Alastair, how about you? What's the tone that you're kind of trying to show on Tipping Point when you're kind of casting people? What do you look for in that sense?
And so I think that so we do this series, we're doing 100 episodes. Previous series we did 165 episodes. It becomes not so much about each individual episode, because obviously, you know, people do have stories we want to get across. We want that kind of the same things everyone's touched on, but we want, as a series, you want everyone to kind of be representative of the UK. So you want people from every demographic, you want people from, you know, every background to be represented on the show. So it's not just I don't tend to look at it and, oh, this one episode has to have X, Y, Z, but as a series, we also don't want it to be, you know, every episode is you know, Richard, as we've mentioned before, but it's that. So you want the whole series should give everyone from, you know, every background a chance to come onto the show. And that's kind of like our starting point on Tipping Point, is that if you are willing to apply to the show, you've got a chance to come on. And if you're, well, you know, obviously there's all the fun things in casting where you want people who are fun, you want people who have stories. But if you apply and you go through our process and you're keen, you have a chance. And that's kind of the point. You know, you want to, as a series over, say, 100 episodes, you want it to not just be the same lineup on every episode.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think that's kind of covered the casting process, casting strategy quite nicely. Again, we're open to questions towards the end, but we'll spend the next 10 minutes kind of just discussing contributor management next, because that is a massive key. You know, you might find an amazing person, but if they're not kind of managed correctly or appropriately, you know, like we've mentioned, or something comes up in their lives personally, there could be dropout rates. So, you know, it's a real key element of casting. So if we talk a bit about honesty, I guess, and being transparent with contributors, so that they know kind of what they're getting themselves in for, I guess. I mean, it's one thing to sell a person a dream, and then in reality they get there and it's not what's been kind of presented to them. So Rosie, let's go to you on this first. Kind of just talk to us a bit about the communication between the people that you've cast.
Yeah, absolutely. Honesty is paramount. I think we all probably, as casting producers, form a friendship to a certain extent, like a professional friendship with contributors. You like to build that rapport, and I think honesty is part of that. And for me, on all the jobs that I do and the teams that I manage, I tend to, or now I've started to form an informed consent workflow, so that the whole team can be on board with how much we are informing people about the show and the process at each stage, and making sure that we're repeating key information at various points of the casting process so that people really take it in and they understand. One of those things on first dates is making it super clear, especially to teenagers who, you know, might go to school and tell everyone, oh my God, I've got an audition for first dates, blah, blah, I'm going to be in the restaurant, I'm going to find the love of my life. Is managing those expectations and sort of saying that we might not find you a match, because that happens. If we don't just chuck people in the first dates restaurant and see what happens, we like to be quite sure that there are going to be at least a few points that these people are going to bounce off and enjoy each other's company. We don't set anyone up for a fall. So we have some in the past, we've had amazing contributors on our books that we just haven't found matches for, because we've gone, this is just not good enough, or, you know, we've not found their dream match and we're just not happy with it. So we have to manage those expectations that people may not make it to the restaurant. If they do make it into the restaurant, we film more dates than we need, so they may not make it on TV. They may go through this whole big process, this big scary process, and come out the other end thrilled about the experience, and then kind of go, oh, I'm not going to have that moment where all my friends and my family get to watch me on TV. So there's a huge element of managing expectations that I think comes as part of that honesty as well.
Yeah, brilliant, and so important, yeah, to have that clear communication with them. And Claire, anything to add on the role of honesty from your side of things?
Yeah, so I mean, all that exactly like the same as Rosie, and it is so important. And I think, especially on the doghouse, a lot of people apply, and they might sort of initially think that or sort of say that they're looking for a dog because their previous dog's just died, or they've always wanted a dog. But part of our job is just sort of talking to them and sort of no stone left unturned, and just sort of finding out a little bit about who they are and what their story is, and how that dog, sometimes it might be sort of laid out there for you, sometimes it might need a bit more digging. But I think all that means is, sometimes people come off the Zooms and they're like, whoa, felt like it was just in a therapy session. And I think just by making sure, so I think one of the first things that I say to people on the phone is just sort of explaining the process and what the program's about and what we're looking for. So it isn't a surprise why we're asking them some of the questions, about their recent divorce or things that they're like, how is this associated to getting a dog? So I think just laying it out and by saying, it's all about how dogs can help people, and we just want to find out a little bit about how this dog's going to help you. So I think, yeah, being honest from the absolute sort of get-go is really important, because you want people to open up as well. And I think it is building that trust and, knowing people knowing that they can sort of trust you with things that they often haven't talked about in quite a while. And I think because, there is quite a big dropout rate, like I was saying, because it's a big commitment, obviously, taking on a dog, and because there's there's several stages to the filming, so the interview is often done sort of a couple of weeks before we film at the rig, and in that interview it's 3 hours of talking about sort of some quite deep stuff. So we want them to trust us, that they don't then walk away from that interview and sort of panic before the rig, that they know that they're in safe hands.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's kind of like an ongoing management process as well for contributors, because there's lots of different stages in terms of, meeting them in the initial instance, the pre-production phase when you're kind of keeping them on board until filming takes place, then when the show goes out and they see kind of themselves for the first time. And then after the transmission, there's people that might get recognized, there might be people that end up not doing anything afterwards. And it'd be good to just hear a bit about your experience, Jo, from the different kind of stages of management, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, welfare has become a much bigger thing. It's always something that we've always done, because we're just kind of nice people and we've always just looked out for our contributors, and we've kind of naturally done it. And now more and more welfare is becoming an actual role for people to kind of stay on after filming and make sure. I know I've just kind of written welfare protocol for our show at the moment, the woodworking show, and it's about making sure our welfare producer, who is an independent role, although I'm out there overseeing it as well now, kind of regular check-ins post filming, how are they feeling, it's very overwhelming, it's this massive thing, and then they go home and then that bubble is gone, like just checking in on that level, and reminding them about our social media guidelines as well. We always kind of give those out, and essentially the suggestion is just don't look at the comments, and if you do, remember these people are not happy people or whatever. But it's about kind of saying, you are going on TV, and it's transparency again. It's not like surprise. It's saying you are going on TV. People might say things about you. You don't think someone's going to say something about Woodworker. They might say it, but if they do say it, then call us. Or hate crimes can be reported to police now, or ignore it, or all that kind of stuff. We also, I think probably for every show now, has a psychologist kind of on board as well, so you do pre-psychological assessment just to make sure that they're kind of healthy and happy to go on the program. And if they need extra support, we know what it is. Not everyone gets access to those reports at all. It's very, very few people that would know anything, and so if that something has been flagged in a report after filming, it's saying, okay, is this person predisposed to kind of feelings of particular anxiety or whatever, let's keep checking in on them. And then again, transparency, honesty, letting them know when the show is going to come out. Don't just pop it on TV and let them find out on Facebook or whatever that it's going to be on, and getting in touch with them before and asking if they've got any worries, and then afterwards, after the show's gone out, checking in just to make sure that they are okay. And more often than not, they're fine, they're happy, they're excited, they're a bit embarrassed, they're very high and heightened, and it's great. I have had contributors in the past who've been really, really upset with their contribution for whatever reason. So you escalate it, and you just send that on immediately to kind of execs or series producers or the channel. You offer psychological assessment and help again at that, not assessment, but help again at that point. you make sure that they've got friends and family to talk to. So, and it's all case by case. That's not very common on the shows that I necessarily work on, but it is a thing. So you just kind of constantly being that, as Rosie said, the professional friend, and just checking in on people and making sure they're okay, and being aware that although for you it's another job, for them it's the biggest thing that they're kind of ever really been through. Yeah, I had something else to say but forgotten it.
That was brilliant, thank you so much. And just it would be great just to kind of hear from you in terms of where all of you, where things have been really kind of challenging, I guess. So, you know, just personal experiences. Is there anything, Alastair, I can come to you first, where there's been a situation where you've learned something from the situation, or you had a particular challenge to overcome when it came to kind of dealing with casting or cast on, you know, when you move over to become a studio producer, anything in your own kind of experience, really?
I think that probably one of the biggest challenges we've had is because, obviously, like I said before, in Tipping Point, you want people from, you know, all walks of life to apply, and if someone applies to the show, they have to be considered, which is great. But obviously, and you want people from diverse backgrounds, disability representation on the show as well. Obviously, the logistics, there becomes a challenge. Then we had our first ever blind contestant came on the show last year, which was fantastic. And it's a lady called Abigail. She was amazing. She was so lovely and so supportive and so keen to be involved. And because she was so keen to be involved, obviously that kind of made it was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge, because she wanted to, you know, to work out the logistics of how to actually get her to play a game that is very visually based, because you're hitting a buzzer to time things. So she ended up having to bring basically a friend to assist her in studio, but it was working out the logistics of that, along with the crew, with the, you know, the gallery and everything like that. And I suppose that's the challenge, and it's giving someone like Abigail, who might not get considered for a game show, if you think, oh well, you know, how's a blind lady ostensibly going to play Tipping Point? And it was making sure that she actually had as fair a chance as everyone else to come onto the show.
That's brilliant and amazing that you're able to kind of adjust your setting to allow that to happen. So that's great kind of inclusivity. And the same for you, Claire, any particular challenge that comes to mind, or something that you've had to deal with in your casting experience?
I think ours again is probably you know, it's managing expectations. People get, you know, can, as much as you are sort of managing it from the get-go, and all the exact same things that Rosie was saying, you know, we overshoot, they might not make it on telly, and also there might not be a match, like we might not be able to find a dog for them. But I think people inevitably just get sort of caught up in it. And sometimes, obviously, again, working with not kids and animals, but things can happen out of our control. And, you know, sometimes some of the dogs can become like poorly. And, you know, I remember one particular one it was a blind dog called Olivia, and unfortunately her health sort of deteriorated over a number of months. So it was literally keeping they weren't able to take the dog home. It was waiting, and so it was really important to sort of have that relationship. It was sort of phone calls every other day over a period of a month, sort of making sure that you are aware of sort of remembering what's been said and what's been agreed, because obviously there's a lot of emotion involved, and you're sort of working with the dogs charity and the contributor and obviously us at the TV production company. So it was just sort of always making sure again that we're just very honest, remembering what had been said and what had been agreed, and just sort of making sure that they were okay, and that you know, just being human with it. You know, it's disappointing when after all that process something doesn't work out.
Yeah, definitely. And Rosie, the same to you, any particular challenge that you've come across and how you overcame it?
Yeah, I've got two examples actually. One possibly more fun than the other, but one of them that we had last series of Teen First Dates is we actually faced around a 50% dropout rate, which when you're trying to cast 20 episodes and 2 Christmas specials is quite, you know, a thing in the face. But we just found that because it was post-lockdown, a lot of teenagers have just been through an absolute wealth of challenges, particularly linked to their mental health. So as you're going through that psychological assessment process, we're being told, you know, we just can't progress with certain contributors because it's not worth it. And that's when you're sort of you're more a human than you are a TV producer. You're going, it's not worth making a TV show with this person because it's probably going to be more detrimental than it is positive for them, for various reasons. So that was a massive challenge, and I won't pretend like it was easy. There were definitely some late nights and stressful moments in the office, but we had an incredible team who just rallied through, and we just had to cast twice over. There was no other way forward really, because the schedule couldn't change. So off we went trying to cast 40 episodes instead of 20 essentially. So that was huge, but it was a wake-up call as well, I think, to sort of lock down any effect that had on everyone. But on a slightly more positive note, we had a real fun challenge as well last series, where I found these beautiful, hilarious, gorgeous identical twins based up in Newcastle. Fell in love with them on their casting tape, that we must get them into the restaurant by hook or by crook. Let's do what we can. But obviously that has a number of challenges. The matchmaking process doubles, and they asked for identical twin brothers, which we did try, but that is quite niche. So then we looked for friends also, which didn't pan out, and in the end we wanted to have so they were looking to date boys, and we wanted two boys that had something either similar or noticeably different, or they could bounce off each other, or maybe they were going to get on and have a bromance, or so we were trying to find some sort of link between their two dates, just so that it didn't feel like we just shoehorned in two boys to go on a date with these two identical sisters. And then logistically speaking, there was also the challenge of then, once we found their matches, how on earth are we going to film this in the restaurant? It's fixed rig cameras, they can't really move. Are we going to have them on a table of 4 all together? How's that going to work? In the end, we decided to separate out the tables, but have them near enough to each other that the sisters had a diagonal kind of view of each other, and it was just close enough that they could sort of go, how's your date going, when the boys went to the toilet, and we had all those lovely moments. So it was a real fun one to try and figure out that.
Amazing. Yeah, that's nice. A fun challenge is always good. And just aware of time, so just briefly, it'd be good to kind of move on to skills and kind of qualities. Like, what skills do you think are needed to become a kind of casting producer? And any kind of pieces of advice or top tip. And Jo, if I come to you on this one, and then we can open up for questions for the last 10 minutes, which would be brilliant. So any kind of words of wisdom to impart?
I think, I don't know who else mentioned it, but I think kindness. I think it's really important. These people are the heart of television, and they're for us TV people. They are making our show, and they're putting on their kind of like deepest, darkest stories. They're being completely vulnerable. So I think you've got to be kind. You've got to be a nice person. You've got to realise that. So first of all, get these people on. To also say, do you know what? I'm not comfortable putting that person on TV at all, and having that kind of confidence in yourself to sometimes say no to people if they're not right in that way. Patience, the ability to just let things go, because you'll sometimes spend weeks falling in love with a contributor, and then they just can't make the shoot. They've family emergency, there is something wrong, and you just, rather than dwelling on it and having a cry, don't, just carry on. And so it's that kind of like patience, relax. You are just making TV. I mean, I know it's very important to people's livelihoods and all that, but have a sense of humor, enjoy what you're doing, have patience, and kind of manage your team with positivity, humor, encouragement. Learn to be organized if you're not naturally organized. And just always kind of have that kind of inquisitive mind, and be trying to seek out stories from wherever possible. Because if you do get someone who walks in with smiley eyes and they're absolutely brilliant, then you need to kind of go, right, how are we gonna eke this story out of them so that they work on our show. Yeah, I think that's it. Really.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And yes, we'll go to some questions now, and then hopefully we'll have time to come back for some more top tips, because that's always useful. But one of the first questions is, I guess, starting out, there's someone that's asked, there's lots of casting research positions. Is this a good starting point for a first job in casting? And Claire, we'll come to you for this one, about how to get into the casting world.
Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, I'd worked in TV, I'd already sort of had runner positions, but sort of looking back, I think if anything, you know, years before I'd done a bit of street fundraiser for my sins, and I think it was just having that confidence to sort of approach people. So I guess it's also, you know, looking at when you're approaching companies, what might have happened in your, you know, what you've been doing in your life that isn't just sort of necessarily TV focused. Sort of, if you are, you know, if you're starting out, obviously that would be relevant anyway, but just what you've done that could help. And, you know, in casting, the things that are really important is that just sort of, you know, being personable and confident on the phones and organized, and just, you know, wanting to, yeah, happy to sort of pick up a phone and talk to someone and not be afraid to do it. So yeah, so I've forgotten what your original question was, but yeah, I think, you know, it's just that, basically sort of looking at things that you've done in your life as well that might be relevant to sort of get you off that starting block.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And there's a question that's come in, Rosie, I might give this one to you, just in terms of, I guess, the competitive element and then the collaborative element as well. You know, there's a team that are all obviously motivated to try and find these incredible people. They might come across the same people that they both want to get on the show, and how is that managed from, you know, a senior level, but also amongst the team, really? And basically that the person's asking, are you sometimes after the same contributors?
Yeah, I mean, it's rare for me, but it happens. And I think the joy of television is that it's often quite a small world, particularly casting. So if there's a contributor who says they're also applying for another show, that's a question we always ask. If I or someone on the team knows the series producer or the casting producer on that show, you know, you can just pick up the phone and be like, are you seriously considering? And I've never had an issue where it's been competitive in that way. It's always left up to the contributor. You sort of say, look, you have a choice here. Do you want to progress in either show? And it's up to you, and there are no guarantees. So yeah, I've never had an issue where I've been fighting for a contributor, but maybe that'll happen one day.
Brilliant. And Alastair, there's a question that's more specific to Pointless, and in terms of, has the sort of person you're looking for changed over the years, and about kind of getting a mix of contestants right? And for shows such as Pointless, I know you're on Tipping Point, but how important is knowledge against personality when it comes to that kind of game show world, I guess?
I think that is literally the kind of the eternal like seesaw. I definitely lean more, because I'm not from I spend a lot of time not doing quiz shows, so I lean more towards personality and people who are just nice, because I think that's what everyone at home relates to. But obviously there is an inherent challenge of the, you know, quiz shows. I suppose, for an example, on Pointless and Tipping Point, there's questions I have absolutely no idea. I just sit in the studio going, I have no chance of answering that. So but I'd want someone to come on the show and have a go at it, and I don't want anyone to come on the show and not be able to do it. But that's why we, in all these programs, especially quizzes, we do general knowledge tests beforehand. So it's part of the initial phone conversation involves a general knowledge quiz, as does the video auditions. So there is kind of there's no official cut off or anything like that about you have to get X, Y, Z, but you can at least have a sense if someone's going to struggle on the show, and then that's taken into account. But I would definitely lean towards someone who's nice and, you know, worthwhile going with, rather than someone who necessarily is just a quizzer as such. Not that there's anything wrong with being a quizzer.
Brilliant. And Joe, you've worked on kind of celeb versions of shows in the past. Do you have trouble kind of casting the celebrity versions of certain shows? Like, how difficult is that kind of transition?
Yeah, I've done a bit of it. It's more about the money with that kind of thing. I did a bit of it on Your Face or Mine, where you get celeb couples to come on, and a lot of it is money, annoyingly enough. But then if you do get them on for Your Face or Mine anyway, you then have to kind of treat them almost like a normal contributor, and find out, that's where you rate each other's faces and their exes. You bring their exes on, and then you rate their exes against them. It's a lovely show. So you have to kind of delve into how much that they're willing to kind of talk about, because they're a little bit more sensitive. So you just have to be that much more, I don't want to say on your guard, but you just have, it's very difficult, but because they've got agents involved and they've got managers, it's a different ballgame. I do tend to steer clear of working with celebrities. There are some lovely ones, but also a lot of it becomes about money, a lot of it becomes about agents, and it's about schmoozing and playing that game. And I do casting to talk to normal people and give them a nice time on TV. So yeah, do that if you want.
Brilliant. And there's a question here. One of my favourite programmes is Doghouse, Claire, and they're asking, have some of the participants on the show contacted Wood Green already and then asked if they want to be on the programme, or do you kind of seek them out other ways? Do you get a lot of people coming to you, I guess?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad you like it. It's definitely my favourite show that I've ever worked on. Yeah, we do. So we work, Wood Green do send over, they have, when people are accessing their website, there's a button that you can press which says, are you happy to be contacted by 5 Mile Films? And so we do get lots of people coming in through that, but obviously it is still really important for us to do outreach as well. Often the people that are going into Wood Green, that are applying through Wood Green directly, can't speak, are very sort of within a certain radius of Cambridge. Which is where Wood Green is based. So we obviously want to make sure, yeah, that we are getting a sort of real representation of the whole country. So we throw the net further afield. And also people often might have rescued a dog before, that, you know, they're aware of the whole sort of process, they're aware of Wood Green, and this, you know, we certainly find some of the more sort of powerful stories of where it's their first dog, they've never had a dog before. So yeah, so we do get people through that, but we're definitely, outreach is still really, really big for us.
Brilliant, thank you. And this one is all about kind of dealing with sensitive information, which is really important. So Rosie, I'm thinking maybe you'll have had a lot of dealing with this, whether it comes to, you know, people's sexual identity at a young age as well. And, you know, one of you mentioned that the kind of casting sessions can become a bit like therapy almost for people. They're asked questions that have never been asked before, and they're opening up to essentially a stranger to begin with, but then you have this kind of professional friendship like someone mentioned. So in terms of that balance, I guess the question is about, you know, it's a university student who's quite young and they want to make a documentary, discuss sexual identity, but get that balance and make sure that they're not invading someone's private life too much. How do you approach that?
I think firstly, language is hugely important. So if you aren't confident in talking about gender identity and sexual preferences and things like that, there are a wealth of resources out there. Just do your research. Screen Skills have a really good couple of free courses on diversity in television and language, around, you know, how to phrase certain things if you're not sure how to refer to someone. There's a lot of good advice there. My best piece of advice, if you're not sure, ask, because people quite like talking about themselves. I worked on a documentary once where we were looking for pregnant women, and it was a non-binary participant, which was hugely interesting, and I was fascinated anyway, so I wanted to ask them. I practiced sort of saying they, them, because it was a good few years ago now, in the office with my colleagues when referring about this person, and then they mentioned that they didn't actually like being referred to as a mother. They preferred parent, and all this interesting stuff came out, and it all just came from asking them those questions and sort of saying, you know, I know a certain amount, but there's only, as a cisgendered person, there's only a certain amount that I can know. So, you know, anything I was unsure about, being confident in what I did know and the language I need to use, but also asking questions where you don't know, because you can't know everything.
Brilliant, thank you. And just one final question, because I'm very conscious of time, and Alastair, it'd be great if you could very briefly just talk about the step-up process from kind of researcher to AP and producer, and how people go about that.
I think if you're a researcher and you're looking to go up to AP, it's about it's about being proactive. It's about taking responsibility. That was always I kind of worked a lot of high volume programs, and as a researcher, you're always looking to kind of, it's not just doing your job, it's doing, you know, thinking in the bigger picture. And as you get to AP, it's even more so. It's thinking as a production, what's happening, rather than just this is the part I have to book, or this is the thing I'm responsible for. It's how on a whole does this affect us? And as an AP to producer level, that's the big jump, and that's why that can be such a big jump. Is when you're an AP, it's, you know, you've got so many responsibilities, but then you actually have to start thinking as a production what works, whereas you're focusing on your particular role in that. And I think that, you know, we'd all probably agree that's the difference about being a producer to being an AP.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for everyone that's joined. I hope you enjoyed it, found it really useful. I'm sorry if we didn't get to all of the questions, but there's just so much to discuss in this world of casting. And thank you so much to the amazing panel. You've all got amazing casting experience, and there's lots that I've learned throughout doing this masterclass as well. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone's enjoyed it.
Thank you, Cherry. Thanks everyone for your questions.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.